And we're back for another episode. How are you feeling today, Jude?
Just tired and drained today. Having a down one today, but hey, I'll be out. Just have my cup of coffee.
Same here. I notice my mood goes with the weather as well. Sometimes when it's sunny, it's better, but we'll have ups and downs.
I've got no excuse, man. It's the sun is beaming. It's beaming here in London.
God.
I got zero excuse, man. So yeah. Nah, just what do you call it? It's just it'll be fine. It'll be good, man. It'll be good.
Right. So without further ado, our guest today is J Crawford. As we call him, JJ. JJ is a senior banking guy in the finance industry. He is also a good friend, a father, and a purple belt that trains in Hong Kong. And here we go.
Right, recording, man. How you doing?
Yeah, man, surviving. How about you guys? Fucking hell, man. I wonder if we still live in the 21st century, man. Fucking quasi-worldwide lockdown. Who would have fucking thought, you know what I mean? God damn.
You're in ground zero out there in Hong Kong, man.
Shit, man. That shit is no joke.
Has it been like that for you? Because, like, you've been there, like, from... unlike Viking,
Day one,
who ran, left his boys
took it with him, man. Yeah, it's been strange. Like we've been fortunate in Hong Kong where we haven't been on a full lockdown. So in the beginning, it was very tense because the information we were getting was very spotty. And I remember texting you, Jude, back then. You checked in with me, and I said, "Dude, it's coming your way, right?"
Yeah.
And literally, what we're seeing over here are bits of information, sporadic videos of like people randomly falling in the street. Man, you have no idea like what's real and what's not out there, right? And so everybody panicked. And so next thing you know, like within a 24-hour period, all of Hong Kong's wearing masks, except for my dumb ass, because I never even thought about it, right? And I'm like the odd man out. And then, there's a lot of fear over border closings, etc. I'd shipped my family out to Korea for 2 weeks. Same time, Viking was out in Jeju for various reasons. One, I'm half Korean. I have family out there. We know the food's great, and it's kind of a crazy idea, and I would have never thought Korea would have blown up. But man, there's a 40,000 man army of the United States. I'm like, shit, if it all falls through, at least we'll get a plane ride back to the States, right?
Yeah.
where it's all blowing up now.
Yeah. And then, I mean, it's been very fortunate. We've only had 4 deaths, and we're circa 1,000 people infected. And I think at the height, maybe we had 65 a day, maybe a couple months ago. And we've never really been on full lockdown. Like, we pretty much everyone started working from home. Schools were, on Zoom like everybody else. I think the toilet paper run originated out of Hong Kong, so we'll take credit for that.
Oh yeah.
Right, and then we tried to start a condom run, but man, nobody else picked up. Maybe Singapore, and that was it. But we've been able to go to restaurants. At one point, there was an outbreak at a very popular bar area, so they closed bars down for about a month. They just opened up last week, and we were able to go to restaurants. You have to walk in with a mask. They take your temperature at the door. They have to offer sanitizer, and there was no more than 4 people to a table, unless it's family. And then now it's up to 8 people. And so they're gradually phasing and opening it up even more.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think we're on, I forget how many days, 6 days with no local transmissions. We had one transmission last week where a lady randomly got it. I think her daughter had it, maybe her husband, I forget the third person. And before that, it was a good 2 weeks where we had no local transmission. So we're in a very positive route. at this point. So there's some light at the end of the tunnel. So
nice. Oh, that's good, man. That's good. How's it affecting like work? Because your position.
Look at his beard. That's
yeah. I started growing this about 2 months ago, and I was like, man, I've never in my adult life had the opportunity to grow a beard. So I'm like, fuck it, man. I'm like I was saying earlier, I'm 97 days work from home, right? So I'm like, shit, man, let's see what it is. And man, there's so much maintenance, right? But it's affected work in a number of ways, both positive, negative. Like everybody else, man, the future is very uncertain. A lot of people are very scared of, the economic output or the economic prospects. I'd say, man, personally, I'm thinking another year, 2 years, before we come out of this thing. Mm-hmm. There's been a worldwide freeze at my company for hiring. We're trying to keep perms hired, contractors, right, are on a list. I just got a request today for, man, what's our list, right, globally. So it's happening. From a personal side, I've, like everybody else, you have your ups and downs. You have your sunny days and you have your gray days, and you struggle with the gray days, and you try to enjoy that. I've come to embrace work from home. I really hated it, but I've really come to embrace the freedom that work from home gives me. Yeah. For instance, now I'm up to 25 pull-ups at one time, one set in between meetings. You can bang out a set of push-ups, 200 push-ups in 15 minutes. I can go out to lunch. I can take a walk in the park, and I set my agenda, right? And so I've really come to embrace it. So there are positives out of this thing. From a work perspective, I told all my guys the same thing. Man, this year it's about survival. Yeah. We got paid our bonus in March. Every single guy, man, dude, our next milestone is to have a job, and let's keep a job. That's what we want to do at this point. Keep cash flow coming. Yeah. I think the bonus next year, realistically, is you've got a job, that's your bonus, right? Yeah. So I don't want to sound bleak or, down about it, but man, that's just the reality of it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's good. It's one of the things that I realised with regards to working from home is the whole discipline thing. I think a lot of people who normally work the 9 to 5 in the office have to kind of totally change how they, how the stuff that they view. So like, if you've got a task to do, normally you spend 9 to 5 doing that task rather than actually, people who are used to, like myself, working from home, is that, listen, I've got this task to do, I need to do it as quick and efficiently as possible, and then the rest of the time is mine, So
yeah, absolutely.
It's an interesting way of working. I think one of the beauties that's going to come out of this is actually people's way of working and processes are going to be a lot more efficient. A hell of a lot more efficient, because they're going to say, like, like when you just, it's like when you had a kid for the first time and you used to go to yourself, what the fuck did I used to do for all that spare time that I had?
All that sleep I used to get.
Yeah, all that sleep I used to get. Is like, shit, what I used to do for all that time. And you actually realize, you do have a lot more time to play with if you can try to rearrange your day a bit and your processes a bit and stuff like that. And yeah, it's going to be interesting coming at the back end of this to see, how the workforce is and everybody's.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about it, company-wide at my company, I won't name them, but yeah, I mean, they're going to force it. They're going to relinquish corporate real estate and force work from home. They've realized that, man, we actually do a pretty efficient job. They can save some money, so it's going to become a way of life, right? And if every company is think about what that means for corporate real estate in the long run, right? Things will just change. And like when I lived in New York during 9/11, there was life before 9/11, and then there's life after 9/11. Things just changed, right? And you can't explain it. And after this experience, things will just change in our lives. That we won't think about it now, but it'll just be like a norm in the future, where we look back and laugh, like, damn, we actually showed up to work 9 to 5 every day, right? Like, it'll be like that type of thing. Like, it's like when I was in uni, man, we didn't have computers. We actually have typewriters, and you'd show up with a stack of quarters, I told the young kids, man, you sit there with your cigarette smoking and you put a quarter and you get 30 minutes to type, right?
Wow.
That's how I used to, yeah, man, that's how I used to do the papers back in.
You actually had to pay in quarters.
Yeah, stack of quarters, man, 30 minutes, 25 cents.
Damn. That's hard.
Yeah, and we could smoke inside, man. That was back in the good old days. Shit.
So tell me about New York, man, because I know I've spoken to you in the past, and man, you got so much passion and love for that city. You know?
Yeah, just to set the scene, man, Hong Kong is my favorite place on planet Earth. But man, New York is my favorite place in the frickin' universe, man. This place is amazing. And you know, if you've been there, you know there's an energy about the place. And there, yeah. And what I love is, man, it's as ideal a society as you'll ever get, that I'll ever get to. In that, man, it's a capitalist society. I work hard. I can make tons of money. I live a great life. I can buy services that other people do for me, right? I do services for people. And, you know, my daughter, there's less of a glass ceiling for her, right? Mm-hmm. It's more of an equalitative type society where, man, she went to school with Jews, black people, Chinese people. It wasn't even a thought there. It's just a multicultural environment where, and everybody's just doing their thing, right? Yeah. And that's what I love about New York. So, lived there for 18 years, and yeah, man, I feel like, you know, when I think of New York, I'm a New Yorker at heart, you know. So it'll always be my home. Yeah. So.
Oh, it's a wonderful place, man. I like it. I like. The thing is, like, I think it's only the last probably few years I've met some different groups of people, and they've just taken me to really cool places to eat, and just it's so much to discover, man.
Dude, actually, there's a parallel between Hong Kong and New York. Very, very similar societies, and it's, man, whatever you want, you can find in these cities. Right. I remember first coming out. I was in Alaska for uni. I flew to New York, and they're like, "JJ, man, you want to go to a punk rock place that is only purple-haired people in polka dot pants? That shit exists in New York, right? Like everything that you could dream of." And I mean, I grew up as a young man there. I became wealthy there. I formulated my career there. Dude, there's so many things. There is one negative, though, I have to admit. And, dude, it's the taxes. The taxes kill you there. So you have to pay, in the U.S., you have to pay federal, which is whatever your tax bracket is. It could go up to about 45%. It's very similar to the UK system. But, man, when you live in New York, you have to pay New York State and New York City. And, man, they take another 15% of that slice. Which, man, if let's say you're paying 40%, you're walking away paying 55% of your paycheck, and man, that's harsh. It's a harsh environment to live when you're, more than 50% is going to Uncle Sam and everybody else. So
is that why so many people, so many New Yorkers go down to Florida and settle in Florida? Because
there's no state tax in Florida, and that's why you have a lot of retirees there. Not only for the good weather, but for the fact that you don't have to pay extra to the state beyond that federal tax that you pay. And I'll be honest, man, I can't see myself ever moving back to the U.S. in my working career. Nah, from a tax perspective, it doesn't pay, man.
Right. Okay.
And a lot of people talk about, oh man, I make this much money. Right? Dude, it ain't about how much money you make, it's about how much you make after tax. Straight up.
How much money you keep.
That. Yeah, dude, it is. And that's why a lot of business people are very wealthy, because they have write-offs that they can write off their income. So they get their money, they have the write-offs, they buy shit that they're going to buy anyways, they just put it towards their business, and what's left over, they get taxed, right? Whereas an employee, and Uncle Sam gets their piece, the state gets their piece, and then you get whatever's left over. And, here in Hong Kong, they have a very nice tax regime, which is 15%. If I screw up my taxes, I pay 15%, right? That's if you totally fuck it up. And if you do it right, you're in the 13%, which, man, that's drastic. I remember moving from New York paying 55%, to London, and I was paying 40 in London. I'm like, fuck, what am I going to do with all this extra 15%, man? This is heaven, right? Then I moved to Hong Kong, and it's like, dude, I just can't see myself leaving, man. There's no fucking way. I'm retiring in this bitch if I can, man. So yeah, let's say things, you always got to have a plan B. It's like, man, I'm here in Hong Kong. Things don't work out here. What's the next place? Which the low tax has my industry. You know what I mean? So you got to line this. So
that's good. That's interesting, man. That's really, really, really interesting, man. So how's your family been coping? So they're not with you at the moment. They're in Korea.
No. They came back in February, just before Korea blew up.
Okay.
Yeah, they came back. I wanted them to go to the States, but they didn't want to be separated because my wife was scared. Literally, I live, and it's an interesting place I live. I live in the middle of Kowloon, maybe 10 minutes from Hong Kong Island.
Yeah.
But I live across the street from the Chinese border, right? So we have a high-speed rail, which literally I walk out of my apartment across my apartment complex. Yeah, you walk into the MTR station, and you walk to the other side, and it's the Chinese border, right? Because it's where they do the immigration for the high-speed rail.
Cool.
And my wife's, my wife was like, damn, man, if it goes down, I don't want to be in the States. I don't want to be separated from you. I want to be with you. And so, all right, for my job, I've got to be here, right? As a senior member of the organization, a number of reasons. One, I've got to instill courage in my people, for the customers, etc. Right? It's just, man, that's just the way it goes. So you got to suck it up. And we've been here, and man, it just worked out where this is one of the safest places on earth. So, luckily Viking took it with him.
I only brought Korea and Italy down with me. No big deal.
But yeah, man, they've been, doing as well as expected, man. You just, in this environment, like I said, everybody has their ups and downs. You have your days. Yeah. It's, my wife loves it because, I'm not at work all day. She gets to beat me up all day as a punching bag. And,
Excellent.
And then, my daughter, it's been touch and go with the international school thing, where just like with the UK, the GCSE testing, all of that. This was the year my daughter finished IGCSE. So it's been a fiasco. Yeah, it's been a fiasco, man. And essentially, you take this. It's different for Americans. We take a test every year. You get your grades. All of that added up adds to your score. UK or international system, you take your one test a year, right? Well, man, there is no test. So how do they determine your grades? And there was no judging factor. It's like, so it is your grades that count. It is your homework. So it's like, man, mad rushing through all this paperwork. Yeah. And they got to justify the fees as well. So they kept extending it. Instead of just saying, man, it's over. We're going to take your mock exams, your homework. Yeah. They're like, shit, we got to pay these guys another 3 months. So then they have class online or whatever and making them do homework. And it was just kind of a seesaw. And about a month ago, we just called every single teacher and was like, listen, we've got 7 classes here. There's nothing she's going to do to change that grade. For 2 years, she's been a B or an A or whatever. We're pulling her out because all the evidence shows she's going to get that, right? Yeah. And there was one class where actually the work would change the grade. And so we kept her in that class until she finished her last few exams, and so she's effectively done with that was kind of a fiasco. Yeah. The next challenge is a move. So our lease came up, and man, another positive is I just shaved 25% off my rent in the most expensive place to live on planet Earth, man, which is freaking great. So beer's on me next time you guys are out.
Oh wow!
So
man, Hong Kong, apart from Manhattan, it's like it's the rents there. It's crazy, huh?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. What people don't realize is if you work for a bigger company, there is a old Colonial Loophole that gives you rent tax-free or pre-tax. Right. And so, a lot of people, they pay their rent. It sucks, right? It always sucks. But what bigger companies do is they have this thing where you bring in the lease, and let's say you make just as a round number, 100,000 pounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your lease is 25,000 pounds a year. They take your lease, and now they call it housing allowance, and they give you that 25,000. Your salary is 75,000. You still make the same amount of money, but that 25,000 is no longer taxed under that 15%. So you make a few bucks that way. It's not as bad as people try to bullshit you when you come out here, man. They're just trying to convince you to pay the bill at the bar, man, when they tell you how expensive the rent is. Anyways, how you guys doing? How you guys making out in
today I'm having a bad day. Today is a harsh day, just like
one of those gray days, huh?
Yeah, just tired and stuff like that, and just trying to just like chug through stuff, So, my enthusiasm, my conversation enthusiasm is just like at a low point at the moment, man. So I'm just trying to scrape through the day, but it's nice and sunny out here. That's the good thing. But I just want to get back to a little bit of normality, and get like. Yesterday he was talking and was talking about the actually lack of space that you have yourself when you have your family at home the whole time, and the times that you have, and Viking was saying like he wakes up like 4 or 5 in the morning just to get stuff that he needs to do done for himself, like even like read a book or something like that without being disturbed. And it's the same thing for me, it's like stuff on the TV you can't watch because the kids or the missus don't watch it, so you have to almost like emasculate yourself, capitulate to everybody else in the house before you're able to do something. So that kind of builds up. So then you take all those energies and you just like you pop to the gym and do jiu-jitsu or something like that, but you don't have that outlet. So now you have to find certain ways, whether it be just doing different types of exercises that compensate for what you used to do, but also on the flip side of it is a reminder of what you're not doing, or what you're used to, or you sit down and have a conversation with a man like J Crawford, and it's like discussion just to get it over. So it's stuff like that, and being able to kind of like manage that type of stuff, in a day now. So some days it's just like boom. God damn it.
Dude, it's sunny some days, gray some days, and
Absolutely.
I hear you, man. Sometimes I go out to, there's a park I live over here, man, and there's a bunch of benches, and I had a funny experience where I'm like, fuck it, I gotta go to the park, and I'll just take calls at the park, right?
Yeah.
And I got bring your own device so I can do my shit on my phone. And I looked up one day and I'm like, dude, I'm sitting on this bench. There's another dumbass that is doing the same thing on that bench. There's a dude over there. Dude, it's all the dudes that got kicked out of the house or same thing, man. They just got to get the hell out.
It's true, man. It's true. So listen, man, tell me about your jiu-jitsu journey. When did you start, etc., right up until Hong Kong?
Yeah, so it started because I wanted to get my daughter into a self-defense, and where I worked actually had it at the workplace, and I saw I happened to see a bunch of guys that came out and after a session, and I was like, shit, I'll try it. It's free, why not, right? And so. It was one class a week, Fridays. It was run by a guy named Luke Spencer, man. Love the guy to death. Give him a shout out now. It was no gi. And we went in for an hour and a half and did my first session. And man, for the last 15, 20 years, I've been consistently a long distance runner, triathlete, long distance swimmer, whatever I happen to be, right? And on that day, I'm like, fuck, I found my sport, man. I got flexibility, strength, cardio, everything all in 2 minutes because I gassed out like after 2 minutes. I was like, dude, I'm done. Fuck. The guys are like, yeah, man, you got another 3 minutes. Keep going. I'm like, fuck it. Dude, I just got my whole day's workout like right there. I'm like, dude, I'm in love with this shit. Plus, I get to learn to, this great skill.
Yeah.
And, I did that for maybe a couple weeks and my personality type is, dude, I just cannot do a little bit, man. I can't control myself. I'm all fucking in, right?
Yeah.
So then I had to go find a gym. And so I looked on the map of London and I had to transfer it. What was it? Waterloo. No, what was it? I went to Waterloo.
Clapham Junction, maybe?
Yeah, I had to go through Clapham Junction, and I lived in a place called Walton-on-Thames. And in Clapham, it was just halfway point, exactly. And there's a new school, BJJ.
Yeah.
And the reviews were really good, right? I looked it up. I emailed them. They said, come down for a class, right? And then, mind you, I did a month of 1 week no-gi with a bunch of other, dudes that sit behind desks and are unfit, thinking, damn, man, I'm talented at this shit, right? Like, I'm going to go in and... So I remember going to my first class, right? And, it's a fundamentals class, and I'm like, fuck, I'm way ahead of these guys, man. I got this. And I remember some guy had this one guy... was a 2-stripe white belt. And I'm like, fuck, I could take this guy. Fucking clean the mat with me. Like, holy fuck, this shit is legit, man. This is cool, right? And then, man, I just started training 3-4 times a week. And then I would, and it built up to 7 days a week where I was drilling at work with the guys that were in the class, right? Yeah. And for the first year and a half, I was training every day, just focusing on whatever, I had a curriculum, and I was very methodical about it. And I just gave away a grappling dummy that I don't use anymore, that I did use as a white belt, blue belt, that, I could practice my shit on. But, I was at a new school for, I'd say a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah, 2 years. And, and I'll be honest, living in England, England's a funny place, in that unless you grow up there, people are very insular, and you'll never make great relationships outside of work with the English people. And it's not disrespect to them, it's just cultural. And they may tend to disagree. But man, it's the first time in my life that I became friends with normal people, normal English people that didn't live in this bubble of work. And, I built very strong bonds with these people. Man, love them to death, right? And they come from all walks of life. And they accepted me for who I am. And they didn't, care what I did. I could do anything for a job. I'm a cool guy. I'm not an asshole. So, man, they're cool with me, right? And, one thing led to another. Started competing about, I'd say 6 months after I started. Yeah. And embarrassingly lost to a guy that couldn't tie his own belt due to my own nerves, as I say, right? And then I realized, and competing is actually its own sport within the sport, right? You can know jiu-jitsu, you could be superior to your opponent, but man, there's a mental game that you got to overcome to actually win. There's, and so then I realized, damn, man, there's more to this whole thing than I thought. And so then, I think in the course of the next year, I competed 6-7 times, as much as I could. Yeah. And then my dream has always been to live and work in Asia. And, I'd come to Hong Kong for business for many years, probably over the last 10 years. I've been here 15, 18 times or so, and I just fell in love with the city. Yeah. And had the opportunity to move out, and man, these opportunities don't always come, so I took it. And ended up, before I left, they gifted me with my blue belt. And very emotional for me. Like, you make that first thing, and it's like, damn, man, you work so freaking hard for it. Man, you really work hard for this, right? Yeah. And, I see them less often. I get to train with them less often, but I love them just the same as much as I do my new family, right? So then, I came to Hong Kong, and, my coaches there, Nikki, Anthony, Stu, pointed me to Viking. They're like, man, you got to train with this dude Viking, right? Yeah. So I texted Viking, and I come out in December before I moved out for kind of a spot check, or not a spot check, but a site visit is what they call it, Basically, you come out, you do a quick interview, then you go out for happy hour, make sure you fit with the boss and all of that stuff, right? And I literally flew off the plane. I went to a private school interview, and before I even got any sleep, I was already training. I did the interview from like 8 to 9, took the train all the way to Viking spot. At about 9:30, we started training 10 o'clock, Hurt Locker. And shit, I'd been up all night, and I trained that. And then we went out to lunch, got to know Viking. And yeah, man, when I moved out here, trained as much as I could with Hurt Locker at first, but man, it's difficult. You're doing like the new guy hustle. You're new here. You gotta, establish yourself. You gotta build a reputation, all of that stuff, right? And I trained at a gym just down the street here that Viking taught at. And then I think over time, Viking moved to a more permanent location, and I moved with Viking, right? And so, I've been training under Viking for 3 years, and I've come to really love my Hong Kong family here, and they've made my life a complete different experience. Where a lot of expats come here and they live in the expat bubble, and literally couldn't tell yourself from New York or Hong Kong other than, man, you're in a bar with some Chinese writing, right? Mm-hmm. But here I've experienced so much more richness, and it's through, Viking, my boys Kaki, Yin, Locke, all of these guys, man. I love them to death, man. And, these are guys that I've, over the last 3 years that I've trained with them that, man, they'll be my friends forever. You know what I mean? Like, man, these are the guys that if anything goes down, and shit, it can happen here, right? Like, dude, I'll be there for these guys. And that's, how I feel about it, And my experience here in Hong Kong's been completely different than anything other than, or these other expats. And, a case in point is I had a coworker arrested in an MTR station. What was it, back in maybe November? And what had happened is there were some random guys beating up a young kid. And my coworker stepped in and was like, man, what the heck are you guys doing? And they're like, we're police. And by law here in Hong Kong, when you say can I see your ID? That's the law. They have to produce a police ID. They did not produce one. An altercation happened. And about 3 months down the line, my coworker was arrested.
Oh, wow.
And or 2 months, another month, because it happened in November, and then he got arrested in December, and I was at home on holiday. And man, I just happened to pick up the phone call, and the guy's like, dude, I need a lawyer, like today. I need it like right now. And I'm like, my boss calls me, and he's like, JJ, man, I got this weird text from this guy. You got a lawyer? I'm like, no, man, hold on. I know people. So I call up, Viking and the boys. I'm like, dude, I need a lawyer. And in jiu-jitsu, there is a guy, right? I don't know if we want to name his name or whatever, Viking, but dude, he is an excellent lawyer, man. He's like, he's a high-end lawyer.
Is he a criminal lawyer?
Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah, I think he's a criminal lawyer.
And man, I called him. He said, JJ, I'm in court today, man. I'm like, man, I got my boy in jail. He needs to take a statement. He's like, give me 30 minutes. And he's like, my coworker's coming to take the statement for you. And she showed up to the station about 2 hours later, and basically guided my friend, who's a foreigner in this country, through the legal system of what he should do. It's very similar to the UK system, right? So basically they asked him a series of questions. They guided him on how to answer that. He walked out on bail. And ultimately it turned out that they were not police. And he got off completely. No charges, nothing. And man, to this day, he's like thanking the lawyer. He's thanking me, like, man, because, you get convicted in a country here, man, you're liable to lose your job. They may kick you out of the country. You just don't know, right? Yeah. And through just that example of, the connection and the strength of jiu-jitsu in Hong Kong, that through our family, through Inglorious, man, it's, like I said, man, I can't say enough about the experience.
It is one of the things that I always keep saying, and like we have our coaches meetings and stuff like that, like once a week, once every couple of weeks. But it's as a group and as an academy and stuff like that, it's I can go out and I can get somebody else to design me a website who's outside of but no, I'd want to give that work to somebody within the family, within the academy.
Oh, absolutely, man.
And I think that's important that we kind of as a photographer, there's no point me getting a photographer that's outside. Let me get somebody. Is anyone here a photographer? And just use those assets and stuff, and just keep it within the group. It's very important because it not only builds that bond and stuff, it builds that trust, etc. Because you share so much.
That's the other thing,
with people.
That's the other thing I would say about maybe our particular sport is that trust is it's a very big and important thing, and it's not only bringing the business or creating bonds within our own community, but we also would know 100% that they will give their best of their service to us, and so we wouldn't have to filter or worry about whether we're gonna get this job done or not. I know they're gonna make it, but yeah,
especially as they know you as well as it's different from if you're pitching to an agency or something. They don't know you, they don't know your experiences, they don't know how you feel, how what sports you like or whatever. But if you're somebody that that is within your group, within your sport,
it's sort of like accountability, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they also if they fuck up, we're gonna go
yeah, exactly, man. They've got to show up back to the dojo, right? At some
point. So are you guys back training at all now?
Yeah. So we started a couple weeks ago in very small groups, and it's been segregated between belts, and it was not advertised. It was just a small group of on higher belts on Monday, Wednesdays, lower belts on Tuesdays, Thursdays. Mm-hmm. And it's as the confidence of Hong Kong has grown, so has the classes. Right. So as we've hit, I think, 26 days, circa 26 days with only 3 people infected within Hong Kong, everybody's confidence is raising and people are starting to come out. And right, so the level of number of people coming into the classes are growing as well. And when I first started off, we kind of asked each other, man, did anybody travel? Anybody,
yeah.
Who's been in Hong Kong since January, right? And you've been in contact with anybody that travels, et cetera, and it was like 4 people, and we all knew each other's history. And then it has just kind of grown to where, man, I think Monday night, it must have been 10 guys on the mats, right? And last night I went to the lower belt class because there's a kid I took very first class, man. It was a weird experience teaching someone how to tie their belt, but that's a different story. But and I realized, man, I'm a shitty coach. Dude, I'm a better competitor than I'm a coach. But anyway, so there must have been a good 10 people at the lower belt class last night too. So it's encouraging to see that the population's coming back.
Getting more confident. When did you guys start training? When did the academy open back up?
I would say 2 weeks ago.
All right.
Ernst.
Okay.
I think the government gives out certain guidelines of, from what I know of Hong Kong at the moment, you can open up classes like gyms and stuff, but it's limited to 8 people, and or coaches have to wear masks in between or before it opens up or whatnot. But I think every country or every city should have their own guideline, because not everyone's completely sealed off or having travelers in and around. I don't know. It's a bit of a puzzle that we have to go through.
Yeah, it'd be strange navigating the next, I'd say 18 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months of this until there is a wider vaccine, right? It's the risk we have to weigh.
Yeah. Are people still able to travel freely in and out of Hong Kong?
I think you can. there's very limited flights. You can leave all you want, right? Whether the other country will accept you, that's a different story, right? There's countries that full out ban people from Hong Kong. Taiwan as an example. Now, coming into Hong Kong right now as a non-resident, non-residents are barred from entering Hong Kong. I believe that may open up June 7th, potentially. I may be wrong on that. I'm not. I mean, they may open up China and Macau to a certain extent then. But right now, if you are a resident, which means you have a visa to work here, you're a Hong Kong citizen. You basically come into the airport and you go to the Hong Kong Expo, where you sit there, and by all accounts, if you arrive in the morning, you sit there, you get your test, COVID test, and you wait for your result, which can take 5 to 7 hours. And if you arrive in the afternoon or evening, then they give you a hotel room where you go, you take your test, and you go to the hotel room, wait your results. And based on your results, whether you go to self-quarantine or the hospital, right? And certain countries, I believe they go direct to government quarantine. There is no self-quarantining, from my understanding. So certain countries feel... China, I'm not sure. Actually, there's a kind of a loophole there in that I believe they allow the borders sealed, but you need a visa as a Chinese citizen to come to Hong Kong. China has effectively stopped giving those visas. So technically, you can't come to Hong Kong at that point, right? Unless you have a long-term visa, and there is some sort of quarantine. I'm not sure if it's government or self.
I think there's a little thing where in the past there were people from mainland China who has kids that go to school in Hong Kong, and so those guys could get an exemption of quarantine. Yeah,
like they live on the border, they come across the border every day to school or whatever, right? I do know that there has been a weird industry that has sprung up here in Hong Kong. So tourism has fallen by 96%, right? And so, man, you've got all these hotels that are basically empty. And a lot of them are giving them quarantine packages now. So I had a colleague who had a daughter that, and this may be an option for you, Viking, in a couple of weeks, man. Stay in the peninsula, babe, for 2 weeks, right? But anyways, he had a daughter that goes to school in the UK. And this one of the assholes I met in the park, we were out there, and I ran into him. He's a coworker. And I'm like, hey, man, how's it going? He's like, yeah, this and that. My wife's beat me up. I'm out in the park. Similar story. And then he's like, yeah, my kid just came back from Hong Kong. And I'm like, or UK. And I'm like, oh, shit. This one, UK was blowing up bad, right? I'm like, oh, man, you better be careful. He's like, no, man, I sent her out to a hotel. And he's like, fuck it. I just send her out to one of these quarantine packages for 2 weeks. They give you the food. They drop the food at the thing. Everything's sorted, right? Like free internet. And,
wow.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird little industry that just for survival, that a lot of these hotels. And I've actually seen, man, you can stay at a hotel, 400, 500 square feet. And what were they charging? Effectively like £1,500 a month. That included breakfast, gym, everything. So they want you to come and stay like months, man. Like you just come into the hotel, and we're in the middle of moving, and I'm telling my wife, "Shit, we'll just get two, man. One for my kid, one for me, and me and my wife. Fuck, we'll just live there for like 6 months, man. We'll save money, and breakfast is sorted, gym sorted. So it is a kind of a weird, industry. So,
Yeah, they got
option for you guys, Viking, when you come. When are you back? Next week? 2 weeks from now?
Maybe I'm looking at maybe 2 weeks. The other thing that I'm sort of screening is also the unknown about flight risks, because I'm just reading, getting data everywhere, and it seems a lot of people who are still traveling are testing positive, but I don't know if they're positive from their country or during the flight.
Yeah, man, the interesting one is we had, I think it's flight 283, 287. BA from London to Hong Kong. 15 people ended up getting COVID on some flight. I can't remember which, and they were not on the same flight, meaning they were same flight number, different days, right? And my wife has this theory, and scratch, I said any airline, I don't want them coming back on me, like blaming them for any business they lose. But my wife has this theory where they just don't sanitize the planes enough, and so once you have someone, right?
Yeah. When I was coming back from Connecticut and in March, and this whole thing was blowing up in New York, it's clear that the plane just landed. I had a connection from Chicago. It's clear the plane had just landed, cleaned it out, and they just was turning around again. There was no like they didn't sanitize nothing. So yeah, it's airline industries do have to take partly to blame for the transference of this, but also I believe that countries have to take responsibility as well, because even though this was going on, there was still, and known that this thing is spreading, you could have flown anywhere around the globe, really, up until the point that it just got, actually, it didn't even really stop, it just cut down a little bit. We were under the assumption here in the UK that, there were no flights in and out of the UK. And then for one day, I just just saw a plane in the air and went, hey. And then I checked on the app, to see like where, who's flying in and out and stuff like that. I just looked down at Heathrow and I was like, God damn, you mean I can go to LA, Hong Kong, Rome, there's all these destinations coming up, and I was like, oh shit. So it's just very, very interesting. I keep saying it's not a pandemic of so much of this virus. It's more a pandemic of kind of like greed, Whereas like, if everybody made a concerted effort to just like, hey, you know what, 2 weeks, nothing, no flights, no nothing, no planes, no nothing, just in March, nothing, it would have kind of like stopped all the shit that we're going through at the moment. Because like the entertainment industry, sports industry are just getting hammered. Because they rely on the crowds. They're there to entertain people. There's artists who had tours and they can't tour anymore and stuff like that. And it's a big thing. It's a big thing.
Yeah, man. Like I said in the beginning, I can't believe, man, we're in the 21st century living through this. I'm like. Yeah. Fucking hell, man. I wake up, look out my window here, and I'm just like, damn, man. Can't believe it, man. Someone press reset on this simulation, please.
It was funny because, I think the football leagues in Germany started off on Saturday. So I was watching the Bundesliga, and it's just weird. You can hear...
Are people actually going?
No. It's close games. Yeah, it's really weird. You can hear the coaches screaming for the sideline. It's just so weird, mate. They score, and usually like they jump on each other. They don't. It's like I want to give you hype, but I can't. It's like, yeah, you can feel it.
Did you see the one where I think it was the Korean baseball game where they put the sex dolls out in the audience to make it look like people were there?
That's amazing. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that was hilarious, man.
Yeah, that's funny, man.
That's funny.
I was half expecting Oleg to be part of that crowd, like, hey, take tours.
Actually, June, our boy in Korea, he sent me a stream because he's a PT for a couple of those baseball players in Korea, which is apparently a big sport there. And I was just clicking on one of the live streams, and it's absolutely empty. The stadiums are empty. I've never seen anything like it. But yeah.
So let me ask you guys a question, man. Where's the first place you're gonna go when travel opens up safely? Because everybody's got their wish list, man, right? Everybody's been dreaming about traveling, and everybody's got their wish list, right?
For me, it's just back to work, mate. It's just back to work. I'm a workaholic. I love it, man. I love what I do. It's just getting back to that grind again. I just love it, Yeah, and everything else in between is just gravy. But yeah, it's just getting back to work, just going to events again and stuff, and reconnecting with people that you haven't seen in a long time. Because I think that's it. You know, we can go on holiday and chill on a beach somewhere with the family that I've been with for the last fucking 3 months, or you know, just like, you know, just get that work-life balance back again, you know, and reconnect with people that you haven't seen, and you know, come to see you lot in Hong Kong and stuff like that. You know, that's getting that back. That's for me anyway.
Yeah, I think Viking is just get home, man. That's your wish, right? If I can get me out of here living with the in-laws for 3 months, man. In-laws for 3 months. That don't sound like vacation, bro.
No, definitely. I would like to go to Guam, just get somewhere with beach and sunlight and, you know, like ocean. But as Jude said, we travel a lot for our work, so just getting back to work would be like a nice change of pace that we've been in the past 2-3 months. You know, especially our guys in China, they're texting us every day and there's videos and stuff, and it's really important to, especially with our sport, to connect with people. But yeah, I was watching also like the people in Abu Dhabi, UAE, JJF and stuff, and they've already started getting all their athletes in for testing, and they're planning to reopen some competitions in September or November time. So maybe that's also something to look forward to within this year. I'm not sure how realistic that would be in terms of travel, but that's what they're planning.
Yeah, man. That's a good sign. People are planning, right? At
yeah,
least there's some hope.
Well, yeah, that's that, and that is the main thing. You know, it's like, I think it's all right to wallow in self-pity now, and just keep going like, oh shit, I can't believe what's happening. But actually, at the end of the day is about planning and you know, after this, you know, and getting out of the back of it. You know, 100%.
I've been even like, you know, like for me, I've been thinking a little bit longer term, and you know, I'm only a few years out from retirement, to be honest, right? And
you gonna retire?
Fuck
really
yeah,
retire?
well, I ain't gonna be doing what I do. I'll always work. It just won't be what I do, right? Today, but yeah, man, I have vacation time, so I took vacation time just because I was getting burnt at work, and I realized, god damn, man, I spent 4 days here doing nothing, and man, I cannot do retirement in the traditional sense, like you alluded to, right? Yeah, there's no way, man. I just got too much energy, too much stuff to do. But there's a positive that's come out of self-discovery and learning that, man, I'll always have to work the rest of my life. What that work looks like may not look like what it is today, right? I may be teaching jiu-jitsu in the future or whatever, right? Like,
yeah, anything, man. I have a theory, and it's always, you know, and I'm still yet to be proved wrong. I believe that, like, as men, we are not built for retiring. Just not built for it. There's, you know, a close friend of the family's on my wife's side, you know, and he was just a doctor, amazing. The moment he retired, though, he just got ill, sick, and started to go down. You know, I just believe, you know, as men, we're not built for that sit, retire thing. You know, we have to be doing something. Even if you leave the industry that you've been in and retire, but you have to be doing something else. That
I 100% agree with you, man.
Challenges you the whole time, you know. So yeah, it's also the reason why, you know, we're not like, you know, 20s anymore, but it's the reason why, you know, we're in, you know, 40s plus doing jiu-jitsu, because it still gives us that mental challenge, that physical challenge all the time. And I think that, you know, that's why, you know, we'll never stop unless you get some crazy injury or something like that. But you know,
completely agree with that, man. Yeah.
Not built for retirement. So yeah, fuck your theory on retiring.
That and when I look in the mirror, I see a 21-year-old kid, so I gotta keep doing jiu-jitsu to live up to that thing I see in the mirror, right?
No, 100%, man, 100%.
Well, this ties in a lot with the work ethic.
Yeah.
I think this ties in a lot with the work ethic, and especially something like the sport, it really drills that work ethic into you. And so it's really hard to just stop everything in your life and retire when this has become part of like your personality almost.
Oh yeah, and it's like this is a prime example of not retiring, but this is a prime example of you not doing what you normally do. You know, so you're in lockdown, you're in quarantine, and look how many of us struggle. You know, it's just like, can you imagine like you stopping your daily routine and boom, like that, you know? So this is a really good, like, kind of like a mental note or to keep in your head.
Yeah,
to say,
time to reflect, man. Time to reflect on.
You're not supposed to retire. You're supposed to kind of keep hustling as much as you possibly can, you know. And you know, if your job isn't what you're supposed to, if your job isn't what you've been doing for the last 10, 15, 20 years, then your next job should be like educating or mentoring people or kids that are coming through. So at least you'll stay in that industry, but you're still passing it on. You become a mentor, you become a teacher for somebody else. And I'm a firm believer that's what, you know, us as men are supposed to be doing. You know, it's like being educated, be almost like be fathers to everybody else, you know, who's younger than us. So you know, so yeah, so it keeps us fresh and keeps us keep going and keeps our heads keep ticking over. You know, Viking won't get it. He's not 40 yet.
Not too soon.
Yeah. Keep it that way as long as you can.
Listen, Jay, so listen, we hit the hour mark and stuff like that, but what we do with everybody, man, at the end of these is just to, we just ask them, what we called it, Viking? What we called it?
It's Good Vibe Minute.
A Good Vibe Minute, yeah. So it's just like anything that you think, especially with what we're going through now, is anything that you think, you know, that people should hear, you know, just to give them a good vibe, a little bit of inspiration, you know what I mean, whether it be kids you're talking to, whether it be colleagues or whatever, you know, just anything, man. Just give some 1 minute of your inspiration, brother.
Tough one, man, tough one. What I would say is, no, man, the sun will shine another day, right? This is just a blip, and we'll look back and joke on all of this shit at one point. I've lived through 9/11. I've lived through the blackouts of New York. I've been at the riots of London. I was when New York was flooded. I was there at Brexit. I've seen the social unrest here. Man, dude, it's just, we'll get past this and keep strong and work at your goals. Take the opportunity now and self-reflect and figure out what life looks like in 5 years for you, right? And start achieving those goals. If I were to say anything, spend 10 minutes and write that article about whatever, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, what would that article say about you in 5 years? What did you achieve? Where do you want to be? Right? And then look back on that, and what in your life now are you not doing to achieve that vision? And change your life to fit that vision. Otherwise, right, you're kind of wasting your time. You know, reflect on this time, right? And we'll all come out, be social, enjoy. We're gonna reminisce about how much we enjoyed the past, and you know, let's, you know, use it positively and move forward positively. And you know, it's just change happens, and this is what it is, man. That's all. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I would say to people.
Sounds like a really good exercise. I'm going to try that. The writing down bit.
Dude, I do it every few years. It's worth just reflecting. Where do I want to be in 5 years? And man, if I'm not doing what it is today that gets me to that vision, then I'm wasting my time.
100%. Listen, brother. Thank you very much, man. Thanks for your time.
No, I appreciate the opportunity to speak, man. I always love hearing my own bullshit, so thank you very much. It's good seeing you guys. And hopefully other people will enjoy it as well. And Jude, can't wait till you come out to Hong Kong again. Viking, man. Dude, you gotta just get back, man.
Hopefully I'll see you in 2 weeks. Let's see.
All right, man. The shit's getting old out here without you, man. So we miss you, man.
Miss you too.
Miss you too, man. Listen, thank you very much, yeah?
All right, guys. Stay safe.
Look after yourself, man.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Hey, buddy.